Hello, and thank you for joining me. This is part of a project that I'm doing for a class that I'm taking this semester, but it really stems from a lot of conversations that we've had on an ongoing basis in our department, looking at community and university relations. We know this is a topic that we have, especially when we talk about internships for our students in the School of Social Sciences and Human Services, as we're engaging our students in areas of professional practice and ethical standards and development. This is an ongoing conversation. So 3 areas that we'll look at are optimal student engagement and equity, collaboration between university and community stakeholders, and applying theory to practice, relevant curriculum review. Each of these are areas that tie specifically to some of our goals, our WIGs, our wildly important goals, and of course our institutional values. We've spent the last year talking in particular about cultural intelligence, the CQ model by Livermore. And certainly being involved in the community helps our students and us to stay in touch with what's going on in our community and relevant in the classroom. Collaboration between our community stakeholders and the university. I know this is something that all of us do well. I appreciate that we have a team that's very well connected to community members. Many of us serve on boards. Many of us also volunteer or work in agencies that still do the type of work that we send our students to as interns. And that's something that I really appreciate about our department. Also, applying theory to practice and continuing to review our curriculum. We just came through a 10-year reaccreditation visit from the Higher Learning Commission, so I want to thank everyone that had a part in that, which really is all of us, and we came through it with flying colors. Part of what that process reminds us is that we must continually be updating our curriculum and making sure that we're giving our students the most cutting-edge, up-to-date educational experience that they can have, so that when they get into their internships and when they graduate, they have the language, they have the ethics, they have the values that they'll need to be successful in the field. And of course, for us as a faith-based institution, it comes down as well to applying their faith in a very real-world setting with people that might not share their values and their beliefs. So, community focus for optimal student engagement and equity. And this ties in specifically for us as one of our institutional pillars of transformational relationships and an understanding of diversity, equity, and cultural intelligence. So we know that community-based education builds upon the core values of equity, and that's certainly a value that we have as well in our department. So access to opportunities and the narrowing of systemic achievement gaps. Many times our students come to us with some of those gaps present. Some of our first-generation college students, students that came in on academic probation, some of our students from underrepresented people groups, students of color, our black and brown students, our immigrant students, or English as second language students. Sometimes they come in and they struggle, and I know many of us are serving in a way that we scaffold around them and help them to be successful. So know that your efforts are never unnoticed or unappreciated. I appreciate the work that everyone does in supporting our students that need extra help. Viewing communities systemically within a broader social context helps students understand the world in which they live and reflect upon their role or the various roles in their communities. For our students who come from a very white, middle-class, socioeconomic status background, for many, coming to college is the first exposure and experience with diversity that some have had. Some of our students, as we know, come from homeschool backgrounds, and for them being able to be in an urban environment where our college is situated is for themselves an experience in cultural intelligence, and it gives them an opportunity to reflect and to grow. So I know in our courses we often teach from a systems perspective or the person in environment, but just to remember and be reminded that often in a community setting these things are made known, and we have an opportunity then to have these crucial conversations around equity and diversity and continue to build that as a foundational value that our students are getting while they're with us. Community focus is an assumed competence for some professional fields like education, human services, psychology, social work. criminal justice, where engaging social systems and advocacy are ethical foundations for practice. So many of our students will go on and work in criminal justice or the courts or in policing or community policing or social work, or go on for graduate degrees in social work, counseling, psychology, each of these areas, or work in mental health or teaching or the school systems. And what we find is that, of course, having that exposure and experience and being able to actually flesh and live out their ethical standards in a way that is respectful of others and that builds their faith and their own perspective in serving others well, serves the communities that they're in well also. Holliman, Frady, McKinney, and Bernal noted the social capital university partnerships provide to their communities. So sometimes we forget and maybe sell ourselves short when we don't realize, or we forget that we bring a lot of things to our communities when we reach out and serve at a higher level. Most of us in our department serve on boards, so know that that is encouraged. It's not a conflict of interest. You're never discouraged from doing that. In fact, we encourage you to be out there serving on boards, volunteering your time. If there's an area that scratches an itch from your own professional expertise, that's something that we highly encourage, because you're building relationships, you're serving the university by also serving our community. As well, our research capabilities, and there's areas that we might not even be aware of, that local agencies or systems may have a problem or a challenge that they're facing that we might be able to speak to, that we might have some of the talent on our own campus that might be able to address that concern in a way that would be very helpful to them. So we want to keep ongoing dialogue going back and forth between our stakeholders and our university, and act really in a liaison role as we serve our community partners well. We see this especially in some of our underrepresented K-12 schools. So being an urban university in the city of Wyoming, in the city of Grand Rapids, right next door, many of our schools are often struggling financially. They're struggling in terms of resources, and we can be of service to them. I know that we served as a campus community a couple years ago with the One Wyoming project, and that was a great opportunity for some of our students then, for a full academic year, to be mentoring students, to help with reading programs, and to be engaged in the local schools, which also gave great visibility for the college, and that we were engaged in the local K-12 schools, providing and essentially giving our students to serve their students, which really created a win-win relationship. And some of those students then came back when they were looking at college and came to Grace, which is a beautiful thing. Academic advisors and recruitment staff are also a critical link in sharing about community partnerships and visiting in current students, and of course their parents, highlighting potential internship options while their children or while the students are with us in their academic programs, but also looking at higher after graduation. When new students come around, oftentimes with their parents for a campus visit, one of the first questions that I get asked is always, what can I do with this degree? Where are your graduates working? Where will my child intern? Do you have relationships with others in the community that would potentially hire my child? So there's often a return on investment perspective, that the idea that going for higher education or spending thousands of dollars on tuition just to be a better informed citizen or to be more of a critical thinker, those are great, and it's really part of the tacit curriculum that's already expected. But the critical question seems to be around, what can I do with this degree? Where can my child get a job? And can they actually pay back the investment that we're helping with? Or if they have student loans, how are they going to be able to pay that back? So it becomes a very pragmatic issue, in that being able to highlight these community partnerships with our stakeholders is helpful. We can say our interns are at this agency and that agency, or cadetting for this police department, or working with this court system. And then at that point, it's even helpful to say, here's where our graduates are currently working, and this is how they're changing the world. When we look at collaboration, a lot of times we can provide collaborative relationships that critically assess the strengths and shared challenges for students and systems alike. And that's not only good for us as we recruit potential students, but it's good for us in serving our communities and providing opportunities for our students. Many social science programs, including all of ours in the School of Social Science and Human Services, require an internship at all levels. So from bachelor's to graduate studies, org leadership, the ministry program, of course. And it provides the context to engage and apply classroom learning and ethical expectations in one's career path. So that's something that I'm proud of as we continue to nurture these relationships and collaboration agreements with our stakeholders. It's really helpful for students who have a passion for human trafficking, or want to work with the court, or want to work with kids, or work in an area that we already have a relationship. And for those that we don't, it gives us an opportunity to find out, well, who meets that need? Where is the niche in the community? And how can we link our students who are interested in that area so that they can have an internship experience and or at least a networking opportunity with those that are doing the work that they want to do. So the most effective learning occurs in the community and with those who are seeking solutions to real-world problems. So it's one thing to be in a classroom and to talk about a social problem or an issue or a challenge, for instance, a case study, but it actually hits students differently when they're learning in vivo. And many of our students actually prefer it, where they can be in a situation that they have to think on their feet, they have to apply what they've learned in the classroom, and then deepen that learning in a way that now it really becomes internalized with the values of our school, their own personal ethics and values, and of course integrating their faith into the process of being salt and light in a fallen world. Our students are exposed to affirming and competing values and processes for addressing social issues from diverse perspectives, while also applying theories and research that seeks to address potential challenges. And this is one of the joys of working with our students when they get into the internship, because it's here that we can then have those conversations and dialogue and say, what did you do? What did you think? What was your thought process? How have we addressed that at all in class? If we have. If we haven't, why not? Where could you find those types of answers? And we begin asking those critical questions and really encouraging our students then to think critically about what they have learned, what they're continuing to learn in process, and what they hope to learn as they continue through their internship or practicum process, or even after graduation. What else do you need from here? Now, for us coming through our accreditation process, we're constantly in a stage of curriculum review. I know just in the last week, Sharita and I had a conversation about one of our courses, our online courses, that needs some updating, that she's not happy with it, I'm not happy with it, and I think it's going to be a project that we'll both probably tackle perhaps over the summer to say, how do we bring this course really into 2021 next year? Continually assess one's role in the broader community, and remember, success is never final. And this comes from Rabowski, Rouse, and Henderson. So I like that. You know, we felt pretty good when we had our site visit and we got our feedback from the Higher Learning Commission. Here's your feedback. You're approved for another, 10-year reaccreditation, which is always the goal. You know, we want to do well, but it doesn't mean that we can rest. So when we have our meetings on assessment and curriculum review, there's that concept of closing the loop, that all of this is cyclical. So as we get feedback from our community stakeholders and our students, and as we're out and about meeting with people, we want to continue to make sure that the wins and what we're doing well don't allow us or cause us or tempt us to become complacent, because we know that just as soon as I think, boy, we have arrived, this curriculum is on point, it is good, our students are getting everything they need, that's about the time that things change. And if anything we've learned during the pandemic in 2020, if I would have thought that we had arrived last year, look at how much upheaval and change and turmoil we've had just in the last semester and a half. And even thinking through, what are the givens? In some ways, what we think is a given may certainly not be. So we're constantly assessing our needs and revising curriculum as we go. Internships provide the upper division students the opportunity to develop skills, consider ethics, work behaviors in a real-world environment, and receive the mentoring and supervision from a professional working in the field. So I think for us, especially as a smaller campus, I love that we can develop transformational relationships with our students, and that's our fourth institutional pillar, right? Transformational relationships. And yet, sometimes having a diversity of opinion or perspective from an outside mentor, a community member, someone who's working in the field in their chosen career path, really provides a perspective that I think adds depth of knowledge and additional context for our students who are doing their internships. And certainly they'll get that in the field after graduation, even more so. Also guiding ongoing curriculum design and giving us a process for making changes based on student and stakeholder feedback. So it's being open to that feedback that we're getting from other students when they come back and they say, boy, I never heard this term before. What does this mean? And sometimes for us, we think, well, I'm sure I talked about that in the classroom, but if the students aren't retaining that, then that's probably something that we need to add additional focus on in our courses. So it's just continuing to use and integrate that feedback, which is really important. I thank you so much for being a part of this. I look forward to continuing an ongoing dialogue as we have done really in the last 2 years as we prepared for our HLC self-study and site visit, and hopefully just some of the literature that I've shared with you and some of the main key points have been useful. And looking through some of the references, if you have any questions, certainly let me know. I'm happy to forward any articles or book recommendations as we continue to have this conversation. Thank you for all you do. Merry Christmas. Have a wonderful break, and I appreciate you engaging in this process. Blessings.